Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the February meeting of the joint Metro North Long Island Railroad Committee. We will start with public comments. Are there any public comments?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. We have 3 speakers signed up to speak. Before I introduce them, with your permission, I'd like to go through the safety announcement.
Go right ahead.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Your safety is our first priority. The following are the procedures to follow in the event of an emergency. If an alarm sounds, wait for a public address announcement and follow instructions. If told to go to another floor or to evacuate the building, leave all unessential items behind and use stairwell exit A just across the main hallway or stairwell E down the hall past the elevator lobby. Please notify emergency personnel if you need assistance. Automated external defibrillator, AED, for use by trained personnel are located in the main hall just past the elevators. There are 3 speakers this morning, Mr. Chairman. The first is Orrin Getz, followed by, and I apologize if I get the name wrong, Mark Buncher.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Orrin Getz, and I'm the Vice Chairman of the Metro North Rail Commuter Council. On February 6th, 2019, I attended a public forum that New Jersey Transit sponsored in the Veterans Hall near the Suffern Station. And not only were riders invited to come, but also local officials were invited to attend. Chair Susan Metzger was there. Randy Glucksman, who's also a member of the MTA Board, was there, along with Ed Day, our county executive. It was a very productive meeting. At the meeting, New Jersey Transit announced that there would be enough engineers in second quarter of 2019 to start restoring the surface cuts that were implemented in June of 2018. We really need is that Metro North follow up with New Jersey Transit to make sure our express trains, and those were the trains cut on the Pascack Valley line, do have priority in getting the restoration. Also at the forum, I had a chance to discuss the situation with the Suffern Station. And just very simply, New Jersey Transit is not going to do much with the Suffern Station. The MTA has to take over that station and own it so that they can do the necessary upgrades to the station. And as Susan Metzger had mentioned to me, we should fix it up and maybe have it look like the White Plains station. It's a very nice station in White Plains, and we would be thrilled to have a station of that quality in Rockland County. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, there's been a change. My understanding is the next speaker is H.P. Schroer.
Good morning. My name is H.P. Schroer, a veteran of World War II and director of You and Me Become We, a self-funded veterans advocacy organization. For over a year and a half, I've appeared before this board requesting you to give veterans the same discount as seniors. During this period, it costs each veteran over $2,500 to get to and from work. Not in Suffolk County, because Suffolk County gives veterans who travel on their buses a veterans discount. The Long Island Railroad does not. Employees recognize veterans offer skills, dependability, and a work ethic which is highly treasured. Yet you offer no veterans discount to reduce their cost of commuting and have lost 35% of our veteran population due to the high cost of living here. You say you can't afford to give a veterans discount because you don't have the money. Yet you fail to make any effort to help pass 2 state bills which give all veterans a discount while helping discourage their leaving the state. You say you don't have any money, yet you ignored our proposal to fund a veterans discount without any loss of revenue by dedicating 2 cents from every fare collected. You say you don't have any money, yet the mayor and New York City have committed to give veterans a discount, while this board and governor refuse to do so. Is there anyone here from the governor's office? Why, I ask, when is for as little as 2 cents, you can do it. This is a nonpartisan issue which the public supports, I think.
Thank you very much, sir.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes, unless someone else has signed up, that concludes our public speakers for the meeting.
Anyone else want to speak before we go on? Oh, somebody just came in.
Good morning and apologies for the late entry. My name is Lisa Dagley and I'm the Executive Director of the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA PCAC. I don't want to take much time here today. I do want to let you know that this week and next week and last week we will be testifying in support of sustainable funding for all of the MTA operating agencies in Albany and also across the region, including congestion pricing. And whatever we can do to support the efforts for sustainable funding, we're with you. We know how critical it is, not just to avoid a major fare hike, but also for the system as a whole and for the economy of the region. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. We have the approval of the minutes of the January 22nd meeting. Are there any changes to the minutes? If not, I'll make a motion to approve. Second, all in favor? Okay. Are there any changes to the work plans?
No changes to Long Island Railroad work plans.
So for Metro North, there is a change to the work plan. This is a result of the conversation we had last month about the infrastructure program. Commissioner Zuckerman had introduced a resolution with respect to a deadline with a month and a year for completing our track maintenance work, as well as an accelerated plan. We are in the process now of negotiating, and it's an open procurement with an academic institution to provide a little bit of support, which is one of the other requests that had come out of last month's meeting. So I'm going to ask for the committee's indulgence because I do not think we'll be ready in March, which is what you had requested. We're still in the process of bringing that institution on board. We're negotiating because we're trying to keep the costs down, so we're still working out the scope. So I would ask for us to be able to put that on the July plan. We can give you some interim updates between now and then, but I just want to give them time to review our work so that we have the opportunity to have a full discussion in terms of what that timeline looks like, if that's okay with the committee.
Neil?
That sounds like a long time from now. I'd be happy. I appreciate what you're saying. I appreciate you going out to other sources, and the weight of the things on your shoulders and your staff's shoulders is massive and Sisyphusian in many ways, and I appreciate that. However, I would love to find a compromise, if you will, because sadly, I hate to say this, but everything's important, and that's a horrific thing to hear from a board because that's not terribly helpful.
No, I hear what you're saying. So let me tell you where things stand now. We've already done largely our own internal analysis of this, but one of the requests from the committee had been some sort of external validation, and that just takes a little bit of time to arrange. So we can, try to push the external validation up a little bit so that it's maybe in the June timeframe, and then maybe give you sort of an interim update that's sort of outside of the work plan process, just to sort of let you know where our thinking is with respect to those items. Does that sound about right?
I think seeing the internal first and then having the external validation
Sure.
second would be perfectly fine
Okay,
for me.
fine.
I don't want to speak for my colleagues.
Okay.
Everybody, Susan?
Agreement.
All right, so we will amend the work
Okay.
plan for the formal report to be in June, and then we'll figure out sometime between now and June to give you some sort of an interim update. Does that work?
Okay,
Good, thank you.
very good. Okay. Agency President's Report. Phil?
Good morning, committee members, and thank you. I wanted to first note in January we saw another big increase in ridership, a 4% growth compared to 2018, over 280,000 additional riders, a testament to the economic growth on Long Island. And it reaffirms our need to accelerate necessary upgrades and repairs to our critical assets throughout the system, and to push to acquire fleet needed to meet our increasing demands. In support of this ridership, I'm thankful for all the efforts of our employees who have stepped up to help us achieve one of our best overall January on-time performance numbers of 92.7% on-time ridership, nearly 9% better than last year. So the initiatives set on the forward continue to be validated, and the direction we're moving as we manage under challenging fiscal times. Our aggressive vegetation management has allowed us to minimize the likelihood of incidents to date, and I'm proud to say we've had 0 incidents due to trees or branches falling from our right-of-way onto our tracks, which in the past has resulted in severe delays and even service suspensions. Additionally, our partnership with PSEG continues to be fruitful. Building on last year's totals, we've replaced 25 poles already in 2019 and over 105 poles since we began last summer. Again, proactively mitigating risk, resulting in no fallen poles since we've started this effort. The flexible delineators at all 296 grade crossings, the first in the country, were a low-cost investment that has proven invaluable. We have gone from a rising trend of accidental cars turning onto our tracks down to 0 since May of 2018. And while we have mitigated cars turning onto our right-of-way, incidents in the past have caused us both delays and money. Most importantly, though, we've made it safer for our customers, our employees, and for the public using the local roadway. However, we must not lose sight of our goals, maintaining a sense of urgency as we review needs and establish priorities. There is more to do. Continued investment to push progress in those areas is needed so we can ensure long-term improvements and success. Our winter preparations have proven beneficial to date as we enter March, but we are far from done, and we know what Mother Nature has shown us in the past. We're managing every event with the same level of preparedness to tackle what we can control and minimize impacts from events that we cannot. We're continuing to evaluate our storm operations to make sure our employees are positioned strategically, that they have the right tools, and that service adjustments are communicated well in advance. And of course, the customer experience remains a top priority for us. Our new train finding tool has been received positively by customers and our own employees, with over 15,000 unique users to date. Our riders now have the reassurance of knowing where the trains are at any given time, as aware of delays or incidents that might affect their trip and how long their trip will be, allowing riders to better position themselves on the platform. And this entire project was done as an in-house team effort across many functional groups. We look forward as that beta program continues moving forward. And we recently hosted 2 additional customer conversations in Nassau and Suffolk counties. Both well attended, and customers were able to get questions answered by our entire leadership team. We're hosting 3 more in the next 2 months in Queens, Brooklyn, and Manhattan. And a weekly Meet the Managers program led by Jim Compton will continue throughout the system. It's important that our customers know that we are available to them and that their suggestions are being taken seriously as we strive to address their concerns and improve their experience on the Long Island Railroad. We know we have a lot more to do, and with the financial stress the entire MTA family is facing, we continue to reevaluate our internal processes to gain efficiencies and maximize our investments. Regarding positive train control, while we've reached a major milestone on the Port Washington line, we know that the road ahead of us for completion is complex. We're holding ourselves and our contractors accountable to make sure we meet deadlines while we maintain our service demands. And while the FRA, due to industry-wide challenges, has extended that deadline an additional 2 years, I want to assure everyone that both Metro North and Long Island Railroad are committed to doing everything in our control to beat this deadline. Our success is intertwined with the ability of our systems integrator to deliver on their commitments and to provide the necessary leadership and resources to support the project through completion. As such, and in response to the board's request in January, the railroads have invited the project managers and executives from the Positive Train Control Systems integrators, Bombardier and Siemens, to attend today's meeting. And since the board members have become very familiar with PTC report format, and in the interest of time, we won't give our entire presentation today, but Debbie Chin is here to walk us through a quick summary of the project before we turn our floor over to the board and give them an opportunity to directly ask questions of the system integrators. I also wanted to speak quickly about our workforce and diversity goals. It is important to the railroad and our future growth that we retain a diverse labor force, and I want to thank our diversity director, Michael Fife, for holding our feet to the fire in this mission. In your package, you will see our 2018 fourth quarter EEO report, and Mike and I will be available to answer any questions this morning or at the Diversity Committee. So we're setting a new course for Long Island Railroad, one where we challenge conventional thinking to meet our riders' expectations, where we restore and strengthen today's system while growing it for tomorrow, where we make every dollar count and leverage our resources and relationships to identify new revenues. Our work is far from complete, and as such, we must continue building for the future. Thank you.
Any questions? Chuck?
Phil, I know you are under very severe constraints financially, but there have been an increasing number of complaints about dirty rail cars and the reduced number of cleaners within the service of the Long Island Railroad. Is there anything that you have in mind to be able to deal with that? They obviously need more people. They are severely reduced.
We have actually, since I've started, added an additional 38 car cleaners to the workforces. There were some also modifications to the tools and the materials that they've used, and we've also situated them differently in the system to better enable to give them time to get in and clean cars. With regards to the materials they've been using, we've changed the product that is much better for cleaning the seats, cleaning the floors. We've changed the tools they're using. It's almost like an industrial Swifter type that allows them to quickly get in. And we're enhancing the customer courtesy campaign. We've relaunched the old one, but we're ready to launch a new one that will be more robust.
Let me suggest two things. One, I'll give you a copy of a report that you may already have read on this subject in the Long Island Railroad Today blog. The second thing is, one of the points that has been made is the absence of newer containers for refuse, garbage cans, within the cars. If you would take a look at that, I'd appreciate it. All right?
Certainly.
Anyone else for Benny?
So just to Chuck's point, I just can't stress enough, and we've conveyed this numerous times, we need heads in the system, specifically for cleaning. There's lots of different things that we can do. There's different tools that you can use. There's different ways that you can manipulate equipment to get productivity out of it. And I know now is not the time to be saying that we need heads, especially in light of what's transpired over the weekend and concerns in the field. But we need to prioritize and start moving people to where they belong. So if we really, truly want to make a commitment to clean trains, we have to prioritize those lower salary jobs to get that task done. I just hope, we've said it before, I hope we can just continue to look in that direction to make sure that we solidify that something that may be less expensive in investing in human resources where our customers can see it and appreciate it may be a better value than using administrative staff and higher level decisions to determine what may work out better. So again, respectfully, but I really think we need to prioritize heads in all our departments.
Anyone else? Long Island Railroad Safety Report?
Good morning. Our safety report can be found starting on page 44 in your book, and we are reporting on our performance through the end of December 2018. 4 key highlights that I'd like to bring to your attention are customer reportable injury rate decreased 51% from 4.13 injuries per million customers to 2.03 injuries per million customers from 2017 to 2018. Our employee lost time injury rate decreased 26% from 3.75 injuries per 200,000 hours worked to 2.79 injuries per 200,000 hours worked. Our initiatives continue to focus on employee engagement on the front of personal protective equipment. We are wrapping up our focus on hard hats. Again, our focus is to go out and to engage with employees to raise their awareness about the hazards and how hard hats protect them in the environment that they're working with, as well as to get their feedback on their experiences with the hard hats and how we can make them more functional and easier to wear. We have a number of labor management partnerships at the Long Island Railroad, and I'd like to highlight a key accomplishment from 2018 that was accomplished by our engineering labor management partnership focused on on-track safety. Working together, they developed an on-track safety video for our employees that focuses on the challenges of working along the right-of-way. As you can imagine, that's one of the biggest areas across the railroad industry where we have unique hazards that don't exist in other venues. We partnered with SMART, BRS, IBEW, URSA, and leadership from our engineering, corporate safety, and training and transportation departments to create this video focusing on the experiences of a track supervisor, a B&B supervisor, building and bridges supervisor, as well as a signalman from signal inspector from BRS. These gentlemen generously shared their experiences over the course of their careers and really focused on the importance of remaining vigilant and watching out for each other on the right-of-way, again, with the goal of emphasizing how important it is that people remain focused. That video is going to be shown not only in the classroom during our engineering on-track safety programs, but also along the employee facilities on the kiosks and such. So we're very excited about that launch for this year. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions for Laurie? I just wanted to emphasize again what Phil had mentioned on page 46, the significant decrease in grade crossing incidents. It's always nice when something goes from 17 to 7 in that context, and that's a significant reduction, and both from a safety and customer service perspective, it's a great achievement in that regard. Hopefully, one of these days we'll get it to 0. We can only hope, but at least we're going in the right direction. So congratulations on that. Metro North?
Good morning, everybody. It's getting to be a practice here that we begin the Metro North remarks by acknowledging the contributions of retirees. So I'm actually going to turn the floor over to Rich to speak about our first retiree.
Thank you, Kathy. I'd like to acknowledge Linda Montanino, who's been our Assistant Corporate Secretary. Has captured the words of this committee in many minutes that she's done. She is also our FOIL officer and has helped our attorneys prepare for trial for many years. So thank you very much, Linda. We wish you the best.
The next soon-to-be retiree that we'd like to acknowledge this morning is Al Muir, sitting over there. So you have to be nice to him today because it's his last committee meeting. Al is our Senior Director of Procurement and Material Management. He's been with Metro North since 1988, and he will be retiring at the end of March. Al arrived at Metro North with aircraft mechanical experience from his time at the Air Force and the National Guard. His first job was in our mechanical department, where he maintained M1s, M3s, and 1100s. About a year later, he found his home in procurement and materials management, where he has spent 29 and a half years specializing in rolling stock and advancing to progressively senior positions. And I see his team is actually out here to wish him well. Al was directly involved in the purchase by Metro North of our M7s, our M8s, and our coaches. He's now involved in our locomotive procurement and working with the Long Island on the possible purchase of M9As. He has been instrumental in the implementation of positive train control on our rolling stock, and he has led his team in cradle-to-grave planning and procurement while advancing through the railroad as a negotiator par excellence. As we continue to meet the needs of the future, rolling stock technology has become incredibly complex, and our procurement process for rolling stock equally so. Effective procurement of Metro North state-of-the-art rolling stock can only be accomplished by someone with Al's skill set, a mixture of mechanical and methodical with a huge dose of patience. Al and his expertise will be sorely missed. Please join me in extending our thanks to Al for his 30-plus year contribution to Metro North, as we wish him the very, very best in his next adventure. Thank you. So a couple of other things. I am pleased to report that service delivery during the month of January operated above goal at 95.9%. We're all very fortunate that there were no significant winter storms that impacted service during the month of January. Hudson Line service operated at 95.6%, Harlem Line at 96.8%, and New Haven Line service operated at 95.4%. I do want to mention, though, an incident that occurred last week on the New Haven Line early Tuesday morning. At approximately 12:15 a.m., there was a circuit breaker failure resulting in a fire at an overhead traction power substation that is located east of Devon Movable Bridge in Connecticut. This dates back to 1917, so it was well past its prime. The fire resulted in significant damage to the cables and wires that support the operations of that power substation, and it was determined that they were beyond repair. Fortunately, however, our crews were able to accelerate work just over this past weekend to successfully bring a new substation that was under construction online so that it can provide some of the functionality that was lost at the Devon substation that was damaged. We are also working to introduce interim functionality of a second replacement substation in the location, which was not scheduled to come online until the fall. These are not particularly glamorous projects, but they demonstrate why it's so important to invest in the infrastructure, which is a key priority under our Way Ahead plan, and they're critical to keeping our system safe and reliable. Fortunately, in the week or so since the incident, there has been minimal impact upon OTP on the New Haven line. There have been some delays to trains in the 5 to 10 minute range, but ultimately not so bad. We're continuing to message to our New Haven Line customers that they can anticipate delays up to 10 minutes until the interim repair work is completed and we are fully restored. And we appreciate their patience during this period. Year to date, in terms of OTP, we've been doing pretty well. We're at 96.0% despite this incident, and overall performance has been above goal since December 8th when we wound down our 2018 infrastructure program. West of Hudson service has been a bit of a mixed bag. It's below goal at 90.1 during January. It was affected by weather, equipment failures, and disruptions due to accelerated PTC installations. The good thing is the cancellations are down. There were only 4 canceled trains west of Hudson during the month of January, which were limited to the Pascack Valley line. So at least in that regard, the west of Hudson situation has improved somewhat. And as Orrin Getz mentioned, on February 6th, I was there, Susan was there, Randy was there, as New Jersey Transit hosted an open house for its west of Hudson customers in Suffern. A bit of good news today for our customers at Fordham. Metro North has reached agreement with the Connecticut Department of Transportation to eliminate the long-standing boarding restrictions at Fordham Station. This will open New Haven Line trains for travel between Fordham and Manhattan. This will become effective Sunday, April 14th, which will coincide with our new schedule change. As I think all of you know, because it's a long-standing practice, New Haven Line trains currently stop at Fordham only to enable travel between Fordham and points north in Westchester County and Connecticut. Customers wishing to travel between Fordham and Manhattan are currently directed to Harlem Line trains for travel. Southbound New Haven Line trains actually do stop at Fordham to discharge passengers, and northbound trains at Harlem Line. Let me try this again. Northbound New Haven Line trains stop at Fordham only to receive passengers. This new change means that railroad customers will be able to access an additional 96 weekday trains for travel between Fordham and Manhattan that previously had been unavailable to local customers, which more than doubles existing service of the 93 daily Harlem Line trains. So this is great for our Fordham customers. On Saturdays, 67 New Haven Line trains will now be available for travel, bolstering the existing 83 Harlem Line trains. On Sunday, the railroad is adding access to 65 New Haven Line trains to the existing 63 Harlem Line trains. So this means that during off-peak times, when waits can be the longest, the changes mean that there will be approximately 4 trains an hour instead of the current 2 trains an hour between Fordham and Manhattan. So this is good news for the Bronx. You're welcome. Progress on our Way Ahead plan. Our track safety poster contest. As part of raising awareness on the importance of rail safety, taking a page out of the Long Island Railroad book, Metro North Tracks launched an inaugural rail safety poster contest last September. And here are some of the posters. The contest was open to all schools, beginning with pre-K through the 12th grade within Metro North territory throughout New York and Connecticut. Students were asked to illustrate what they know and believe are most important about rail safety. The team received a total of 62 student poster entries from 13 different schools. The poster entries were divided into 4 groups for judging. So there was a pre-K group, K through 3, 4 through 8, and 9 through 12. The posters were evaluated based on the best representations of safety around trains and train tracks within their grade levels. The 5 winning posters will be featured in our tracks presentations throughout the year, and we're arranging visits to each school, accompanied by the tracks team and our ambassador, Metro Man, so we can recognize them for their achievement. The 5 schools by class category, along with their winning posters, are as follows. So here's pre-K, which is JACE Daycare and Early Learning Program in Wappingers Falls. K through 3 is the Park City Magnet School from Bridgeport, Connecticut. We had a tie for 4th through 8th, Dobbs Ferry Middle School in Dobbs Ferry, New York. And one more. Oh, they're both there? Oh, they're both there. I'm sorry. The Graham Elementary School in Mount Vernon, New York. And then in 9th grade, grade 9 through 12, was Cardinal Hayes High School in the Bronx, and I'm actually going to go up there myself to be able to present that award at Cardinal Hayes High School. We congratulate all the winners as well as those who participated in the contest, and we look forward to visiting the schools. The contest was a creative way to amplify our safety message and keep all the children who live in the railroad's territory out of harm's way. Turning next to our Connect With Us forums. As you know, since 2014, we've been holding informal customer forums at our train stations on a regular basis to foster an open dialogue with our customers. Connect With Us forums are an excellent opportunity for us to inform the public about our efforts, as well as to listen and learn what we can do to make service even better for our customers. Recently, we were at Beacon Station on the 29th of January and Brewster Station on February 6th. I'm actually going to be sharing a FiOS 1 news video of our Brewster Forum, but before I do that, I want to announce the following upcoming sessions. Tomorrow will be at Croton Harmon from 7 to 8:30. On Tuesday, March 12th, we will be at Nanuet from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., and on Tuesday, March 26th, from 6:30 a.m. to 8 a.m. at Harriman Station. And then we're going to be scheduling more as the year goes on, including Connecticut stations. So I think we're now going to see this FiOS video of our Brewster.
Metro North says it wants to make riders happy, and today its president met with some of them. FiOS 1's Patrick Mooseneck has more from the Brewster train station.
So like a train that would express after but stop at Fordham, you're saying?
Yeah, that would be.
Right.
The president of Metro North, Catherine Rinaldi, met with dozens of daily commuters this morning at the Brewster train station as part of a series of informal customer forums. Riders had the opportunity to not only ask questions, but to voice their opinions and have some of their concerns addressed.
Some of the improvements I'd like to see are more docking stations, the reinforcement of the quiet cars, and cleaning up the elevators that get us over to the other side of the track.
Since the end of January, leaders have been meeting with riders across the Hudson Valley, starting at the Beacon train station. These forums are being held at different stations through the end of March, with the final forum scheduled to take place at the Harriman train station.
I think it's very important. It adds more input into the railroad.
Since 2014, Metro North has been hosting these forums annually to not only increase transparency, but to also improve communications with riders. Rinaldi says she regularly rides Hudson Line trains every day. She tells us visiting other stations gives her ideas on how to make improvements.
It's a great thing for me as a rider, as well as for somebody who works at Metro North to see what my Harlem Line customers are experiencing. Right.
The next customer forum is scheduled for the 26th of February at the Croton Harmon train station, starting at 7 a.m. In Brewster, Patrick Mooseneck, FiOS 1 News.
So the one thing that I would say that was not correct there, it sounds like we're not going to hold another one until after the end of March, which is not true. Those are the ones that are scheduled up to this point. So we will continue to schedule them through the year. While we are on the subject of outreach, Metro North and MTA's Department of Diversity and Civil Rights are coordinating an MWBE outreach event on March 1st with the joint venture of Skanska Echo, which I will be attending. As you'll recall, last fall, the board approved a design build contract award to Skanska Echo for the final phase of the Harmon Shop replacement project. DDCR established a 15% minority business enterprise and a 15% women's business enterprise participation goal for the project. The March 1st outreach event will be held at the Yonkers Public Library from 8 to 12, so the prospective MWBE firms can be informed of the project's subcontracting opportunities. We continue to focus on improving customer communications as part of Way Ahead and began installing more digital screens in GCT by partnering with our advertising vendors. So I've got a couple slides here. 7 new screens have replaced some of the old phone banks in the terminal, and these screens enable us to provide customer information on a regular basis and improve communications, especially during service disruptions. We are now working on some digital enhancements to these screens, and we'll be deploying an additional 7 screens this year in place of other phone banks in GCT. And we also have plans to install 300 additional screens in the terminal's train shed, platform areas, and north end access, and we're starting to roll out the digital screens at our outlying stations. Finally, while we're on the subject of Grand Central Terminal, I want to share with the committee an important initiative that we've been planning for some time to help people in need. And before I even do that, I want to acknowledge the participation and support of the MTA PD, which has been really a partner to Metro North in terms of this important homeless outreach effort. Metro North is implementing a new collection box initiative at GCT, with funds raised going directly to people in need of services within the terminal. This new program will not only make a difference to the most vulnerable New Yorkers, but it will help reduce the amount of panhandling within Grand Central Terminal and at terminal entrances. This is how the new initiative is going to work. Customers and visitors to the terminal can donate at 3 collection box locations, which will be activated on March 1st and are located at the upper level ticket vending machine rooms. The collection boxes have been designed and constructed by Metro North forces in accordance with GCT's aesthetics and with minimal structural impact. So you can see on the slide what they're going to look like. Armored cars will make scheduled pickups at the collection boxes, and the funds will be processed and transferred to the MTA social service provider, BRC. Collection amounts will be reported to personnel every month, and we have the ability to audit the collection process. After accepting help and services from BRC and meeting measurable goals, homeless individuals will be receiving gift cards purchased from these funds to be able to incentivize behaviors to get them into the services and the help that they need. Additional gift cards will be distributed to clients who continue to meet benchmarks, accept services, and move towards stability and independence in their lives. To measure and monitor the program's impact, BRC and Metro North personnel will conduct several daily counts of people panhandling inside GCT and at terminal entrances. Homelessness is a devastating, complex societal problem, and this new collection box initiative is a valuable way for us at the MTA to contribute to a solution. I want to extend my thanks to customers for supporting this program and for their generosity. Again, in addition to MTA PD, who's been a real supporter and a driving force in terms of moving this ahead, I want to thank our colleagues at MTA Bus, who actually provided an old bus collection device that could be retrofitted for this purpose. And again, want to give a shout out to my maintenance of way forces who actually designed the collection boxes. We think this is an important initiative, and we're looking forward to kicking it off. And now, very briefly, I'm going to pass it over to Tom Mitchell to talk about some customer service highlights.
Morning. Today we just want to give a update on the station ambassador pilot that we kicked off in December. We have had ambassadors at Harlem 125th Street, Fordham, White Plains, and Stanford stations. Since then, we've seen very positive reaction and feedback from our customers. Having those reps in the stations, the ambassadors answer questions on trains, nearby attractions, places to eat, connecting services. They continually monitor the station and station systems, which allows us to react quickly, a lot quicker to safety issues and issues that may arise with station amenities and communications and ticketing systems. And our ambassadors also monitor the homeless activity at these stations and contact our homeless outreach provider or MTA PD to help these individuals in need, and they can provide valuable information and point out those individuals to the representatives when they do arrive. In addition, we do provide valuable customer assistance with customers with limited mobility. This program has been well received, and we will now extend that or expand that a bit, adding a ambassador at Croton Harmon, New Rochelle, and we're going to add a second trick at Harlem 125th Street, because that has definitely shown to be one of the areas where we really need that. And we'll continue to monitor this program and enhance as necessary. Thank you.
Any questions for Neil?
Thank you.
May I?
For Neil first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Always yield.
Always
No,
yield.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to repeat a comment I made in our last discussion about on-time performance, and I say this to preview something I'll raise when we discuss metrics for that accompany our fare increase when we have that discussion. Kathy, I do appreciate how hard the team has been working on-time performance, and it's clearly seen in the overall statistic. I, however, will make a comment, repeat myself from last time. I believe the AM peak, particularly peak, but even more particularly AM peak, is indicative of what our customers most feel, most experience. There's a reason why you charge more for peak than off-peak. Yet the on-time performance stats that are shown on the overall are significantly different than what those of us who commute every day in the morning experience. I will look to this very stat we see on page 289, which is 96% overall, but 87% AM peak on the Hudson line. That is a significant difference. And I think to show solely the overall stat, I think belies what actually people are experiencing. The results that customers feel, the comments they give you on surveys is tied to the challenge they face when they get to work, or whether they're able to get to work. Not necessarily on the weekends, not necessarily 3 in the afternoon, but the AM peak is the most, as I've said before, most pertinent and in many ways the moment of truth for us in delivering our service. I think to separate a conversation from that particular time period from the overall, I think masks, and not in an untoward way, but in a just purely mathematically statistic way, masks what I think consumers care most about. And I submit that to you as my perspective, an area where I think we need to continue to focus. And frankly, when it comes to the discussion of what the metrics we should be tracking, I personally think overall on-time performance hides what is much more important for our riders, which is AM peak.
I'm not going to push back because I think you're right. I mean, I take the train every day, and I'm, you know, and we see you every now and again, and I agree with you. I mean, I think that, you know, for people who are trying to get into work in the morning, that's a metric that's important to them, and it's an area of opportunity for, I think, you know, all railroads, right? I mean, I'm not going to push back. I do think that we're pretty transparent, though. I don't really feel like we're trying to mask our performance. I think we're pretty transparent about it. But I agree with you. I think it's an area of opportunity, and we'll continue to work on that, while at the same time, again, balancing the need to be able to do the infrastructure work that's so important to us. It's an ongoing balancing act, but I hear you and I agree with you.
Chuck?
Let me add a little bit to this. You and I had an offline exchange on night work, of which I am a champion. Is it possible, bearing in mind the importance of the AM peak, to avoid having track work or other things that can cause delay, avoid having it during those peak hours, shift it over to the afternoon hours or to the, in some other fashion, toward the evening?
Yeah, well, we do. We do that. You know, we give the tracks back in the morning, right? So you have overnight work, and the tracks are given back to the transportation department so that we can, you know, run a robust AM peak service. So that balancing act and that kind of dance goes on every single day, where the engineering department or the capital department takes the tracks to be able to do the work, and then they give the tracks back in the morning so that we can run our service. We do it every day.
If I
Go
may,
ahead.
Mitch.
Go ahead.
I understand and fully recognize that the panhandling and the homeless on at Grand Central and in the various stations is an impediment to customer satisfaction on many occasions. But we both know that they are human beings and have to be dealt with as such. I wonder, especially during the winter and perhaps even during the very hot portions of the summer, whether there are areas within Grand Central Station where they could be allowed to have access so they would not congregate in the mass transportation area on the ground floor and the rest of Grand Central, so that there would be some place for them. It is a public facility. It is a place that is a magnet, and we have made it a magnet. But perhaps you might be able to scout out an area where they would be able, during given hours and given weather conditions, to be able to find some shelter.
We can certainly look into that, Chuck. I would have two concerns. Concern number one would be space is tight, obviously, so we would need to identify an appropriate location. Two, to your point about being a magnet, I would not want to be more of a magnet by creating something that's so attractive that I would be drawing people who might not otherwise come.
Back to your balancing.
Exactly.
Anyone else? Okay, Metro North Safety?
All right, good morning. The safety report can be found on page 48. Customer injuries continue to trend less than 1 injury per million customers, and employee lost time injuries trended better than the previous 12 months and are down 17%. Our community outreach program tracks reached over 2,100 individuals in December, bringing the total for 2018 to 101,000, surpassing our goal of 100,000. Last year, we participated in 50 community outreach events, conducted 86 school presentations, and 60 outreach events at stations and grade crossings. And finally, on Wednesday, March 6th, we will be holding our first quarter Safety Focus Day. This concludes the report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions on that? If not, thank you. MTA Capital Construction, Jano?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm going to give you a quick recap on what some of the key work accomplished on East Side Access in 2018, my first full year on this job, and then talk a little bit about the Long Island Railroad Penn Station Corridor project, which you received some information on over the weekend. So, East Side Access, a couple of things we did in 2018. One is that we held about 100 tours. One of my observations in coming to this project was that nobody really understood what it was. It obviously costs a ton of money and it's taken forever. And we needed to start to explain to people, especially people who are invested in what this is going to deliver, what is going on, and what it will deliver for the public. So I think that has been a very successful piece of what we've done, is demystifying this project. Two is, I think the other thing is that we took Harold interlocking, which had been a source of enormous difficulty for the project. You know, that's the busiest passenger rail intersection in the United States with over 800 trains a day, and we started to hit milestones of work. In early February, we completed several important milestones that enabled us to lift an outage that we had been able to put into effect thanks to my partners at the Long Island Railroad, and which we completed all work on time. A portion of the progress in Harold was the cutover of 5 central instrument locations, which allowed us to retire the pretty antiquated CILs that had been serving Harold for some time. We were able in July to put the permanent mainline 4 tracks into service. They had been relocated to make way for construction of one of the tunnel approaches, but now they're back in action. And there is a shot of the finished Tunnel A approach. You can see is going to connect the mainline tracks with one of the 4 bored Queens tunnels, the new tunnels that will go to Grand Central. And as you can see, it's ready for track to be installed. The Northeast Quadrant track work, this is an incredibly important and complicated piece of our this overall program, is all complete, and it's ready for the BC tunnel approach to begin construction. And among other things, and we haven't, I don't think, talked about this enough, is that this work is actually providing flexibility now for Long Island Railroad trains and Amtrak trains as they traverse Harold interlocking. All right. Systems, you're starting to see major systems coming online. The GO2 traction power substation was put into test service in December and is now permanently providing power for trains through Harold interlocking. The midday storage yard, this is the new facility, which is adjacent to Queens Boulevard, adjacent Northern Boulevard, rather, where all the Long Island Railroad trains are going to be able to lay up and store, be serviced, and be accessed by crews between the peaks. And we've completed 50% of the midday storage yard work. And you see there in that image that bridge, which connects the yard where the trains will be with the crew facility, which is accessible from Northern Boulevard. And I'm also pleased to report that the contractor for the BC Tunnel approach, which is, trumpets please, the last major contract that will complete this entire program, as that contractor has been given notice to proceed and work is underway. So again, another important sign of progress. In the concourse, which many of you have visited, and I invite everybody who hasn't seen it recently to come take, we do a tour, several tours a week, and we can obviously organize it around your schedule. But the concourse is really starting to take shape. There you see the 45th Street passenger escalators with their architectural finishes complete. There's going to be the leave-outs that you see on the side are for digital signage and advertising that we're going to share with our customers as they make their way up and down that. The finishes throughout the concourse are starting to take shape with the installation of ceiling and wall tiles. You can see that there. And actually, we've begun installing the escalators from the mezzanine down to the platforms. So it really is starting to feel like this amazing 8-track train terminal that it's going to be. And we've got mock-ups going of all the finishes that are going to be throughout the terminal. You can see the glass panes and the railings on the right side of the photograph that are going to be throughout the mezzanine and that separates the two track levels. Systems, I've talked to you a great deal about the critical path and the road to completion of this project leads through effective completion of systems, and there is significant progress. The B10 substation, power substation, is complete. That's going to be the power backbone for Queens and Roosevelt Island, and testing is underway. We've got local testing at Queens Plaza, the B11 and 39th Street facility power substations, and these are both close to 90% complete and will support tunnel ventilation, which is obviously a key system and a key element of life safety. And there you see one tunnel ventilation facility at 39th Street. We do use temp power to do all the preliminary testing, and that allows us to maintain schedule even though the permanent power is still being brought online. And finally, as winding down, traction power, we've got the equipment for the 43rd Street substation being delivered in the second quarter of 19. The modular design of that substation is allowing us to do early pre-testing off-site. Again, the testing sequence is really key here and allows us to keep on schedule for that system installation. And here you've got the Vernon substation, which has been completed by the contractor, and the DC switchgear is ready for testing as well. So a little technical, but I think those of you who are in the railroad business understand that this is where this project is going to succeed or fail. We got to get the systems going, but as a place, as a part of our overall regional transportation system, I think we're starting to see the light at the end of the proverbial tunnel. So I'm happy to take any questions on that. If not, I'll move on to
Andrew?
Carter. Please.
He's going to do a report
I'm going
on
to do a
Penn
report on the
Station.
Penn Carter project. if
You
that's
wanna-
okay.
you want to wait?
No,
Or-
the thing I wanted to ask you is, a year ago, you did a complete review of what you felt realistically it was going to cost to finish the East Side access. And there you went through all the overruns, and you outlined in pretty good detail where you felt we would be going forward. How is that shaped up over the last year? Is that part of your report that you're going to give, or? And I noticed, for example, even in today's book, there's some procurement items here under capital construction for East Side access, and I wondered if you could just quickly give a review where we stand today, a year later.
Sure. Since I reported to you on budget and schedule in April, we are tracking to the projections that I gave you. So you will continue to see change orders, which are in the nature of cleaning up the 600-plus issues that existed when we went through that exercise. So we are shrinking the number of issues. We are controlling the exposures associated with the change orders and all those. They're not all change orders, they're issues. But the bottom line is we are tracking to both budget and schedule that I laid out for you, and doesn't mean you keep seeing some of these procurement items, but it is all in the nature of maintaining that projection.
Example, the ones that are in the book today are things you personally approved and are in line with what you've planned.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Mr. Saul, as I've said to you, a lot of them are, don't go down so easy because they reflect decisions that, in retrospect, we don't love. But you got to address the issue, put it to bed, and in that respect, we have a so-called ECOC, Executive Change Order Committee, that meets weekly to go over every one of these things and dialogue with the staff about where we are, why do we have to do this, is there any way to save money, and so on. So every one of them I have approved, but not with joy and triumph, but because you're knocking off issues.
And do you feel the timetable, I forget exactly what the end time, the delivery result is going to be, 22? Okay.
End of 22.
And so far, you haven't seen anything that would...
Listen, every day on this project is a challenge, but so far we are tracking to 22, and in fact, as we are continuing to settle up issues with the two major contractors, we have recommitted to milestones that align with the 22 finish date.
Chuck?
Perhaps this is a discussion we should do offline, but I'd like to flag you out online. Recently, in terms of settling up with contractors, there has been a focus on trying to get rid of a provision that has been sustained by the New York Court of Appeals, which allows the chief engineer to be the arbitrator, thereby expediting and facilitating resolution. As I understand it, you are seeking to move away from that, and I would urge you to think twice about that, because the Court of Appeals has said it is both fair, appropriate, and expeditious, and it is a way in which we can save money, and that is an important goal. I'm happy to discuss it with you further offline, but I wanted to make it clear that this is not something that is in the public interest, in my view.
I think your colleague, Mr. Reckler, Mr. Schwartz, feel differently, and we can certainly discuss it offline, but the reason that issue has been put in the cost containment, again, not specific to East Side Access, which has a DRB process that's sui generis, but the reason that chief engineer issue has been raised in the cost containment working group is that it is widely perceived by contractors as tilting the table in favor of the owner, and therefore encouraging them to put a premium on their pricing or not to bid at all. So and we can certainly have that discussion.
As somebody who litigated on exactly that position.
Yeah.
My client obviously didn't like having the chief engineer rule against them,
but in the interest of the railroad, it's a benefit in the long run. I understand your point, and I'm happy to discuss it
Okay.
offline.
Anyone else on East Side Access? Neil?
I may have missed this in our last conversation, and Mr. Saul brought this up and reminded me. We have an $800 million, almost exactly $800 million difference between our forecast and our budget. So when are we going to discuss where we're paying for this? Is this going to be in the 2020, 2024 capital plan?
It is.
Is that what we're going to be submitting this $800 million? And we're going to put a cushion in beyond that $800 million? Or is
No,
there-
that includes the contingencies that I recommended at the time.
So we'll save that conversation for our
Yes.
discussion about what the two railroads are going to ask for from the...
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Anyone else on East Side Access? If not, Jano, you want to talk about Penn Station?
Sure. Okay. I'm waiting for our friends to put it up on the screen. Okay.
There we go.
Okay, this is the Penn Station corridor. Everybody knows the Long Island Railroad corridor of Penn Station. And this is a project that has been underway for quite some time. And I'm talking about it as an information item. I think the action is to finance.
Yes.
But this is an update to this committee on that. So this is a project that the railroad and we have been working on for quite some time. And together with the railroad, MTA is going to be working to implement it. It actually originated as kind of a real estate department item. The principal goal of widening the corridor, obviously, is to improve pedestrian circulation, and particularly in the interest of safety. Without getting too technical, needless to say, this is, Penn Station was designed long before current codes, and emergency egress is something we need to improve. And obviously the user experience, because we all know the crowding that takes place in Penn Station. The key components of the project are a new entrance from 33rd and 7th Avenue. Everybody knows that getting down to the Long Island Railroad corridor from 7th Avenue is kind of circuitous. You have to sort of find your way through Amtrak land. You might get confused and end up in New Jersey Transit, and there's a couple of narrow stairs. So this fixes it because it's a direct vertical circulation package, 3 escalators and a stairway smack down into the corridor, a wider corridor. Widening the main concourse corridor from 30 feet to 57 feet. It's not exact at every spot, but that is the overall dimension. And increasing the headroom in the main concourse and at the main gate corridor. I wish I were better at this. Okay. Here is the a plan of it. So you see in the shaded dark area, sort of in the top half of the corridor, is the area that's now occupied by retail that is going to be pulled back. The retail storefronts are going to be pulled back by roughly 20 feet. And the whole project is built around a real estate swap with Vornado, which operates One Penn Plaza and Two Penn Plaza, and much of the real estate around Penn Station, including that north side of the concourse retail. VNO, Vornado, is going to relinquish the 27-foot wide strip in return for the right to operate the Long Island Railroad retail spaces on the south side of the concourse. You see some of those highlighted in pink in the bottom of the concourse. And also, as part of settling this all up, a recurring rent credit. The MTA is going to relinquish 4,000 square feet of its current back-of-house space in order for the Vornado retail on the north side to retain as much as possible its depth and dimension. So this is all in the nature of trying to make sure that the retail remains viable on both sides of the concourse. It's going to be high quality, but that the public ends up with a much better public space in between. And one of the things that I pushed hard for and that we were successful in getting in this was for Vornado to agree to build the corridor. It seemed very risky to me to have a retail construction project alongside a public sector corridor construction project. So we pushed and they agreed to be the builder of the corridor. And they're going to be bidding the underlying trade so that we will get competition and it'll be for a fixed price. We are shooting for the entrance. That's the vertical circulation. That's you can see in the sort of on the right side of the plan, to be completed at the same time as the opening of the Moynihan Train Hall in late 2020 or early 2021, and the remainder of the corridor project, it will be completed by December of 2022. It's important that it be effectively staged so that we minimize impact to the customers, the large number of customers who are moving through these areas. Down at the track level, we are expanding the railroad back of house area, and part of that is to accommodate the future operations of Metro North when there is Metro North to Penn service inaugurated. So we've thought through, we've worked with the real estate groups of both railroads, and we thought through what kind of office space, what kind of back of house space is needed, and we're getting more space down at the bottom. So this is just an image of the typical existing retail. A lot of our retail on the south side of the corridor, the non-Vornado retail, has actually been vacated or on short-term extensions in anticipation of this. And Vornado is going to vacate their own retail. It's going to kick out their tenants when necessary to initiate construction. So we've worked that out with them as well. Obviously, it's all pursuant to their existing leases. This is an image of the existing 30-foot wide concourse with a barrel vaulted ceiling that's 17 feet high at the apex, but obviously comes down at the edges. I don't think I've ever seen that concourse quite that empty, but there it is. This is what we're headed towards in rendering, 57-foot wide, 18 feet high all the way across, new finishes, lighting, passenger information, ticketing, and information screens. This is an important point. We all know how people congregate at those screens waiting for the tracks to go up, and we still don't control the tracks fully at Penn the way we will at Eastside Access Terminal and Grand Central. So what I'm determined to do is do like is being done in airports all over the world. Let's spread track and passenger information into the retail and around the terminal so everybody doesn't have to congregate around those, one screen like they're waiting for the tablets to be handed down from Mount Sinai. The other piece of this project is to improve, looking down to the tracks. I think this sort of harkens back a little bit to the design of the old Penn Station, but it will make the those concourses that are the arms that go out from the main corridor a lot more humane if there's some visibility down to the tracks, and it will also orient people, I think, much better. And we have the 34th Street entrance, but it needs needs new lighting and new finishes to make it, I think, part of a much better entryway. And you see on the right, one of the things that we sometimes gets forgotten is that a huge portion of the circulation here is subway customers, right, and who inevitably, it seems like no matter where you want to go, you end up in the Long Island Railroad Concourse when you're coming out of the IRT there. So improving the access and the visibility of that subway entrance as well is important. And here's the 34th Street entrance, existing entrance, but it's going to get some digital signage and some new finishes as part of this. And coming back to the idea of this new entrance from 7th Avenue, here are a couple of the studies of that entrance. It has not been finalized from a design standpoint, but the idea is something not dissimilar from what we've got right here at Bowling Green, a pretty straightforward glass-topped entrance canopy, but most important, providing a heck of a lot of vertical circulation right down into the corridor rather than having to figure out next to the newsstands and go through multiple levels. So we're excited about that, and it does a lot, I think, for the public. So I hope that was helpful. I just wanted folks to know a little bit more about it before we move that project forward.
Questions? Veronica?
As someone who's commuted through Grand Central and Penn Station in the same day twice a day for over a decade, it's really nice to see those improvements. So one question about the info screens. Will we finally integrate the train departures for all the systems on these screens?
In Grand Central, we haven't really talked about it in Penn, but in Grand Central, because of East Side Access is coming soon. The teams are actually working on just that, and the question of whether we want to have adjacent screens, one for Metro North and one for Long Island customers, literally in terms of how to segregate the passengers so that people don't all crowd around the same screen and so on. So people are working through that very issue right now. They will all of the trains will be marked on screens that are highly prominent at all the entrances to Grand Central. And then we're figuring out how to array those screens depending on which access is unique to East Side Access and which ones lead to Metro North specific areas. So it's still a little bit of a work in progress, but we recently had a presentation for the presidents on that, just that issue.
And including Amtrak, right?
In Penn, yeah, in Penn. But as I said, I don't want to mislead you. We hadn't really started to work through the signage issue with Metro North, Penn, and Amtrak in Penn. We're still at the early stages of this redesign.
And my second question is around costs. So reading the staff summary, the costs of this aren't necessarily aggregated. It is broken out what a rent credit would be, how much we have in the existing capital program, how much the state is expected to, or actually not how much the state, but the fact that the state has committed to put in money. So can you provide us with an aggregate cost for what these changes will cost?
But the project cost is it sort of the 5.9. We think it's between 590 and 600 right now. Honestly, it's we're still costing. I don't want to mislead you, but all that the MTA has to put into it right now is the 170 we have, 170 million we have in the current capital program. The state of New York has made a commitment to assume responsibility for the balance of the costs up to that estimate in the 590s.
I presume we're going to enter into an MOU with the state
Yes.
that codifies that commitment.
And one of your colleagues raised it with me over the weekend. We're going to have a writing. So I think, and just to make sure everyone understands, part of our process here at the MTA is we don't execute contracts until we have commitments of the underlying funds, whatever the source.
And that 170 million that's in our existing capital program, what will the bulk of that cover? Would that cover, for example, the rent credit annually?
No.
And is that rent credit in perpetuity?
The rent credit is listen, there's, I can talk to you about this a little bit offline if you wish, but the rent credit is a little uncertain because part of it is going to capture the cost of the construction of the moving the storefronts back, which is uncertain, and I negotiated for and got an arrangement where we would share in the savings if they got a better deal and so on and so on. So that's the exact amount of the rent credit will reflect the actual cost of that construction, and we're going to manage that very closely. The 170 is going to go principally towards the construction of the entrance, that vertical circulation package, which is the first element. But ultimately, it's all going to be funded by the state and the 170. It's one package.
And my final question is, do we have an estimate for what the state's contribution would be?
Right. I think right now it's the difference between the 170 and the project estimate of 594.
Chuck?
I think those renderings for Penn Station are wonderful, and I congratulate you. I have one question, if I may. Who has or will have the responsibility for cleaning the areas, the corridors, in and around the retail? That's a major problem constantly. Is it Long Island Railroad?
Well, right now the maintenance is contracted out, I believe, through an agreement. So it's coordinated through Long Island Railroad, but it's not.
Believe me, that is a major problem at Penn Station. It's filthy. It's filthy all the time. And something needs to be focused on there, because that, with all the wonderful work you're doing and the great amount of money and effort you're expending, if you don't clean it up, it's not going to be worth a damn.
Anyone else? Okay. I just want to thank Jano and MTA Capital Construction and the railroad. As someone who's been here many years and has harped on the condition of Penn Station for many, many years, I think this is a great movement forward. We are going to not only be able to provide our own achievement in regard to it, but welcome our friends from Metro North to explore Penn Station in that regard, whether they want to or not in that context. You know, the improvements that have already been made on the West End corridor, which I used religiously, unfortunately or unfortunately, not enough other people do yet. But it's, you know, it's the easiest way to get to the trains without having to worry about lots of other people. One of the issues Phil and I have talked about is signage to there is not the greatest, and if you don't know how to get to the West End, you don't get to the West End. You end up at the ACE subway station and you stop and not realize you have to go around the corner. So I'm hopeful that that signage and other amenities will be part of this project also, because I think it's clearly showing the people who use Penn Station that we care, and that's been a long time in coming.
Chairman Powell, if I could just add, in advance of the Penn improvements, we are actually currently looking to install improved signage for the West End, because that's one of the things we are looking to try to redistribute some of the issues with folks crowding around the main big board and let them realize there's such a beautiful area on the West End where you can, as you say, have much more space and better access to the platforms.
Yeah. I've come to the conclusion people stay by the main screen because they think they get the information first. Notwithstanding the fact that it all happens at the same time, but I leave that to them in that context. Jano, anything else? Thank you. MTA Police, Chief?
Good morning. I'd like to first start off by commending President Eng and his team in supporting and transporting over 2,000 officers from several different police departments out to Hampton Bays last Wednesday for the funeral of NYPD Detective Brian Simonson, who lost his life responding to a robbery in Queens. The Long Island Railroad, New York City Transit Bus and MTA Bus, and the MTA PD provided a safe and direct route out east and back. This alleviated a host of traffic challenges for the town and county. So on behalf of all those who attended, thank you. For the month of January, I'd like to report that total major felony crime is down system-wide by 30%, 21 crimes versus 30 last year. The Long Island Railroad experienced a decrease in January of 17%. That's 10 crimes versus 12 crimes. 1 robbery, 1 felony assault, 1 burglary, and 7 grand larcenies. Metro North experienced a decrease in January of 41%. 10 crimes versus 17 crimes. 1 robbery, 3 felony assaults, 1 burglary, 4 grand larcenies, and 1 grand larceny auto. Of those 10 crimes, 5 were immediately closed by arrest. And for the hate crime report, there were 2 hate crimes versus 5 last year. 1 of the 2 resulted in an immediate arrest by patrol. That concludes my report.
Any comments? Chuck?
What happened, do you know what happened following the arrest?
Yes, that was a anti-black aggravated harassment, verbal statements made to a FedCap contracted cleaner at Penn. And that person was arrested and arraigned, and it's an ongoing case. So we'll be following up and monitoring that closely.
So you are following up on these, are you?
Yes.
Great, thank you. By the way, your statistics go directly contrary on the positive side to those of the City of New York and to New York City Transit. In other words, you have been able, by following up, to reduce the quantum of these hate crimes, and for that I congratulate you and your folk.
Thank you. Anyone else for the chief? Andrew?
Chief, I haven't gotten any reports, positive or negative, but what's happening up at my favorite place, 125th Street, and the Metro North station there?
A lot is happening by way of enforcement and police presence. Just for the month of January up at 125th Street, we have a constant presence. We've given out 71 summonses, mostly for quality of life type instances. Our activity at 125th Street for the entire year of 2018 resulted in enforcement of 607 summonses at that station alone. And if you look at the year prior to that, in 2017, that comes after a year where we issued 152 summonses. So in 2018 alone, we went from 152 summonses to 607 summonses. And that's due to the focus there and the hard work of the MTA PD officers who have really taken ownership of that station on a 24/7 basis, collaborating with our precinct partners up there. So a lot is happening there, including crime reduction and enforcement.
Good, terrific. Thanks for the emphasis on it, because we know it's been a really big problem. Has anything been done with the homeless situation there, other than, you know, the criminal and the safety thing? I know that the homeless has been a really big problem in that whole area.
Well, at 125th Street, like I said, that's a constant presence there. For the previous year, 2018, at 125th Street alone, we've had 1,742 contacts, which means we work with our partners at the BRC, having dialogue with all of these individuals in need. We've identified individuals at 125th Street that use that station to solicit, to hang out, and to unfortunately take K2 and other types of drugs up there. We've been active as far as arrests and summonses, and actually getting people the accepted services that they need up there.
Chuck?
I think you're doing a splendid job. Just wonderful. I have a question. Now you've given out the summonses. Who does the enforcement on the prosecutorial and judicial side?
Most of those summonses go to the Midtown Community Court. And we actually meet bi-weekly with members of that court. We have actually a multi-pronged approach to this issue, where we enlist the support of the courts, particularly Midtown Community Court, to follow up. Much of it is services, psychological type services, homeless people that have mental illnesses. But those summonses are. It is a challenge, and I'm not going to tell you that I'm satisfied with the disposition of these summonses. Oftentimes, summonses on an individual is disposed of in lieu of any type of penalty. But we are following up, and we do monitor it on a bi-monthly or bi-weekly basis.
Let me make a point which I will repeat in transit. The gap seems increasingly to be between the moment it leaves the law enforcement office, whether it's the New York City Police Department or the Metro North or the MTA Police, and the time it hits the courthouse, whether it be at the prosecutorial level or at the judicial level. And I wonder if the presidents of the railroads would consider the following. Having your legal teams within your various agencies assist Metro North and, well, in your case, Metro North Police at the prosecutorial level, so that both the prosecutors know and the courts know we're serious. And if they don't recognize it, maybe the answer in the final analysis is to authorize a special prosecutor from the Metro North and the Long Island Railroad legal departments to handle the prosecution. This is not unique. The Corporation Council of the City of New York has in the past been extended those rights and we have a greater interest in keeping 125th Street Station and others clean and properly run and comfortable for passengers than apparently the district attorneys and the judges who see these in quantity and dismiss them. They're not sufficiently important for their important station in life. And so maybe the answer is to have our police have the benefit of our legal team pushing these. Give it a thought. I think there's a possibility here of getting better action.
Commissioner, as you know, this work up at 125th Street and throughout the entire region is not easy work. One of the frustrations that we have is our officers do this enforcement, and oftentimes they get hurt. They actually have line-of-duty injuries making this enforcement and assisting this population. So we certainly welcome any kind of
good work
assistance.
shows across the board.
All right, we will see how we can do that together. We all agree that enforcement of the summons and the administration of it is as essential as giving it out in the first place. So let's talk about how we might be able to do that more efficiently. Norman, did you want to add something?
Yeah, do you got a statistic on how many are these repeat offenders? How much of this is recidivism, if I handled that word properly?
Well, I don't have the statistics, but I can confidently say that it's close to 100% recidivist as far as the those that we wind up arresting for resisting or assault, and often much of the other quality of life type offenses.
But you don't keep a statistic on...
We do. I don't have them right. I can get that. I can get that.
No. I just wanted to make sure you were recording it and reviewing the data. You know, it's up to you. No.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Anyone else on that? If not, we're going to move on to information items. First is PTC, Positive Train Control. Obviously, we have a short presentation in that regard by the railroads. We have guests with us from both Bombardier and Siemens to help answer questions from the committee in regard to this very, very important issue. But I'll start with the presidents.
Okay. Would now be a good time for people to make room for the Bombardier Siemens team to make
yes.
up?
Well, whoever from Bombardier and Siemens is going to answer whatever questions come up should come up to the microphone so that it is recorded as appropriate. Okay, let's start with the presentation and then go from there.
Yeah, so Debbie Chin is going to do actually the first couple slides, which is sort of the high-level summary. It's a summary slide that you've seen before. And then we're going to go right into the project risks, because I think that's a good jumping-off point for the questions that I know that you have for the system integrator and the representatives from both Bombardier and Siemens who are here. Before Debbie does the presentation, I'm actually going to ask everybody to introduce themselves by both title and which of the joint venture partners they work for. You want to start?
Good morning. My name is Paul Elia. I'm a project director for Siemens.
Good morning. My name is Anthony DeFrancisco. I'm project director for Bombardier and for the consortium.
Good morning. My name is Ronald Berkelbach. I am head of Region Americas for Bombardier and with Rail Control Solutions.
Good morning. My name is Richard Hunter. I'm the president of Bombardier's Rail Control Solutions division that deals with all of our signaling.
Good morning. Mark Buncher with Siemens Mobility. I'm the president of our North American business.
I'm Lee Sander. I'm president of the Americas for Bombardier Transportation.
Okay. Thank you all, gentlemen, and the rest of your staff for coming. This is the first time, I think, in my 13 years on the board that we've had contractors come and address the board and the committee. This issue is so important and has been discussed by this committee extensively over the last number of years that it was felt by the committee as a whole that it would be appropriate to have the system integrator and others come in to answer questions from the committee on these issues. So we appreciate the fact that you're here, and hopefully we will end the day with more answers than questions in that regard.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Both Metro North and Long Island Railroad met the federal compliance requirements to request an alternative schedule, which extends the project completion date to December 2020. Through the end of January, both railroads conducted revenue service demonstration on their pilot segments. To date, Metro North achieved over 80% of their required RSD runs. For Long Island Railroad, the software release used to initiate RSD on the Port Washington pilot wasn't working as well as we expected. And last week, we decided to test a new software release to improve our chances to get to the required number of RSD runs. We plan to resume RSD at the end of March with this new software. As outlined in our presentation, Metro North and Long Island Railroad have developed very aggressive working schedules to fully implement PTC by the end of the year. And our working schedules are much more aggressive than the schedules we submitted to the FRA. Just to summarize, both Long Island Railroad and Metro North plan to extend their RSD territory beyond the pilot segments into what we call extended RSD on the non-pilot segments in September and October of this year, getting our entire territories into PTC operations in the first half of 2020. We plan to submit our safety plans in the summer of this year with the expectation of getting FRA approval in 6 to 12 months in advance of the 2020 deadline. And we expect to achieve full interoperability with our tenant railroads by the end of 2020. But the railroad's success to meet their working schedules is contingent upon the systems integrator's ability to meet their schedule commitments, mitigate project risks, and we cannot afford to encounter any new equipment reliability and quality issues if we're going to make this deadline. Since the PTC schedule is moving to the end of 2020, we're in the process of evaluating our budgets and anticipate that we will need additional funds to complete the project. The next two slides outline the major project concerns and risks to the project. The first risk is achievement of interoperability with tenant railroads. Interoperability is when tenant locomotives can run on our tracks or wayside. It also means that these same locomotives can seamlessly operate under PTC across railroad boundaries. And it also involves being able to implement temporary speed restrictions on shared trackage through an interface between the respective railroad's safety servers. The effort to achieve interoperability cannot be underestimated. Since Amtrak notified us last year that they're going to be using a new safety server, both Metro North and Long Island and our systems integrator have been working closely with Amtrak and their new supplier for the past several months. We know that we'll need to make some additional changes to our current design to align with Amtrak's new design. A more detailed schedule will be developed once we have a final agreement with Amtrak, but the systems integrator projects that this effort may take several months to complete the design, and then once finalized, we will be able to start testing. Since Amtrak trains already operate under civil speed enforcement on Metro North, and Long Island Railroad already has started to test the communications between our trains on Amtrak's tracks through Harold, we're cautiously optimistic that we'll not have any major issues with this aspect of interoperability. However, the systems integrator has work to do. They need to complete their wayside designs for Harold, not only in support of PTC, but also eastside access. And they also need to complete the designs for the boundary areas. In addition, the system integrator must continue to support Metro North to ensure that they are interoperable with their tenant railroads on the pilot segment, which includes CSX and Amtrak, as part of their revenue service demonstration. The second risk is the systems integrator's ability to support the railroads to meet the new 2020 deadline. Given the systems integrator's performance, delays in resolving outstanding technical issues, and monthly slips in meeting project milestones, the railroads do not have a lot of confidence that the systems integrator will be able to meet their own schedule. They have several software releases they must deliver this year, and each railroad has a different software delivery schedule to achieve project completion, which must be equally supported by the systems integrator. Metro-North is scheduled to get a release. They need to complete RSD in May. Long Island Railroad has a similar release in June to successfully exit RSD on both of their pilot lines. But the software release that Long Island Railroad expects in September is critical, and its delivery is at risk, as it includes a solution for an operational solution which we call back-to-back interlockings, which is not yet fully defined and developed. This impacts about 22 routes on many of Long Island Railroad's non-pilot segments. If the systems integrator does not develop the solution for back-to-back interlockings within the next couple of months, Long Island Railroad's working schedule will be impacted. Last month, the systems integrator put the railroads on notice about several equipment reliability and quality control issues. 100% of the undercar kits are being recalled because a test station in the onboard manufacturing facility was out of calibration since 2016. These issues were found after the equipment was manufactured and installed on all of our trains. To streamline the process, the systems integrator must provide a certain number of units as afloat so that when the railroads start to bring the trains into the shop under our regular 92-day inspection process, we can remove the bad units and reinstall a repair unit in its place. This equipment exchange has been slow to start and will have a major impact to the working schedules of both railroads, especially if not properly managed. Another recent recall involves about 200 GE radios, which are installed both on our trains and on our wayside. A plan for this equipment exchange has not yet been implemented and must be done as soon as possible so as not to delay extended RSD. With all of these recent equipment reliability issues, RSD in progress, and extended RSD still ahead of us, the railroads are concerned that there may be other equipment issues lurking and not yet known. More equipment failures will undoubtedly have an adverse impact on train operations and ultimately project completion. A recurring concern on the project lies with the systems integrator's inability to obtain and maintain adequate resources to support the project schedule and support the unique needs of each railroad. The systems integrator is supporting the two biggest railroads in the country. We have two separate contracts, different territories, different operational requirements, and different implementation timelines and strategies. And we need different software releases to complete RSD on our pilot segments and to go into extended RSD. Therefore, the systems integrator must have enough leadership and skilled staff to support our separate needs. Long Island Railroad has had a contractually required position which has been vacant for almost 2 years. We've had to borrow the technical leadership and expertise of Metro-North's lead systems integrator, who already has enough work. Metro-North and Long Island Railroad are utilizing the same limited number of systems integration specialists. The systems integrator recently brought on some additional expertise, but until they have fully staffed this area of concern for both railroads, there's a continued risk that the implementation of Long Island Railroad's back-to-back issue and any new technical issues that arise will not get resolved timely, and these delays will further impact project completion. The contractor is a partnership of two companies who have significant signaling and onboard expertise worldwide, yet the railroads have had to provide our own technical experts to bridge the gaps in the systems integrator's staffing. And this situation is unacceptable and needs to be remedied immediately. In summary, the railroads will continue to keep the pressure on the systems integrator. will continue to demand that the systems integrator meets their schedule commitments, provides the necessary leadership and resources to support our project schedules, and we demand the systems integrator to act upon our concerns, to have the same sense of urgency that the railroads have to complete our projects on time before the December 2020 deadline. This concludes my presentation. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Questions from the committee? Anyone have any questions for the report?
If not, I guess we can open the floor.
I'd like to add
Susan,
something.
go ahead. Susan, go ahead.
Our independent engineer isn't here at the moment. However, I did have opportunity to review their report. They are going to come to the CPOC meeting this afternoon, and in discussions with them, they totally support all of the risks that Debbie has carefully described to you. So this is coming not only from the railroads, it also is coming from our independent engineer and from this committee as a whole.
Okay. The railroads have raised a number of issues. Would the system integrator in some regard like to respond to those concerns or wait for questions directly? I would suggest you might want to respond to the concerns raised first, and then we can go from there to any questions from the committee members. So I leave that to you to discuss.
Okay, thank you. Maybe if I start and Mark can come in from the
Thank you.
Siemens side. Richard Hunter again. So I think Debbie's highlighted that there is an aggressive program here, and it's a challenging program. We're committed to working to that program. It is in advance of the extended FRA deadline, but it's very important to keep up the sense of urgency and to ensure that we're driving the teams towards the program we have in front of us. So we're continuing to drive to that aggressive schedule. In terms of the resourcing, which was a highlight, again, as was highlighted, we've introduced some additional systems integration resource, and we're continuing to provide more. We have doubled the number of persons on the project over about the last year, but clearly in order to complete the works that we have in front of us, we need to add some additional resources, and we're doing that as we go along. It is a technically challenging project on two very complicated railroads. We fully understand the implications of that and the need to integrate with Amtrak and others, and we're working through all of the processes around that design process and supporting the railroads. In terms of the equipment, you highlighted the issue with the scanner antennas. So this is a product recall that has been put in place globally for that product as a result of the defect that was discovered, but it's a prudent process to replace all of those equipment. In terms of the GE radio, this is a specified radio in the contract, and we are putting together the clear schedule to make sure those are exchanged in a timely fashion to support the overall testing. If you want to add a bit more, Mark?
Just Mark Buncher from Siemens, just to add to the quality failure. We've identified the problem. We have corrected the problem. We're working with the railroads to have the least amount of operational impact as possible, and working on a quick fix to get units back into the system.
Questions? Neil?
Thank you, sir. So my name is Neil Zuckerman. I represent Putnam County, and I've been the working group chair for our PTC working group for some time. So I have a particular interest in this area. So just let me make a statement, and I have 4 questions, but you guys can tell me. I can yield after maybe 1 or 2 to let everyone get their questions in. So a couple of moments on some remarks. First of all, I said in this group, you weren't here in December, that I'm disappointed in the MTA's inability to meet the December 2018 deadline we set for ourselves to fully implement PTC. We did not set a deadline for simply FRA compliance. We set a deadline for full implementation by the end of December 2018. Your 2 firms are complicit in this miss and are responsible for much of our final deadline for the end of December 2020. In my opinion, your firm's future relationship with the state of New York and the MTA itself is dependent on your performance over the next 22 months. I am sure you appreciate the severity of this need. On my own basis, I'm a daily commuter, and I'm the father of 2 commuters. I'm also a friend of Jim Lubba, who passed away at Spuyten Duyvil at the end of 2013. And while we have a piece of PTC that would have prevented his death, I carry his memory with me in these meetings, and certainly in this meeting. I do take it as a sign of your commitment and a positive development that you are here today voluntarily, and I want to thank you for that. It does mean a lot. Let me ask my first question. In whomever's opinion among this group, and I have worked a lot with consortia, I realize they have their own challenges, and whomever would like to take this question, be my guest. Why did Metro North and Long Island Railroad miss the end of December 2018 deadline it set for itself?
Yes, thanks for that question. It's I can say that of the 41 railroads in the United States that do require PTC, these are the largest and arguably the most complex. The technical solution on this is very complicated. Most of the other railroads, you have Class 1 freights, you have a lot of other commuter lines. Without going to really a lot of technical detail, they have interlockings, for example, that are far apart, some 5, 10, 20 miles apart. In the case of these more complicated railroads, especially in the case of Long Island Railroad, we have interlocking signals, switches, et cetera, that are much closer together. The overall signaling system is much more complicated. And the overall technical solution is, like I said, is much more complex. Probably more complex, I suppose, than we had initially considered.
Related, and what was your contribution to the miss? I don't mean you individually, sir. I mean the group.
Obviously, the project's been underway for some time. I think that when we look back to the way it was set up at the beginning and some of the progress from the beginning of the project did not make the necessary progress at the beginning, and therefore there has been a process of continuing to catch back, which is why the program looking ahead has been congested, and it has been congested for the last 18 months that I've been involved in the project. It's already significantly far behind, and we've been endeavouring to ensure that we can keep it on track and to meet the program in front of us. I shan't say that it's a common factor, but these type of complex railroads and systems around the world, it is a very challenging thing to put in service, and to do the whole system at once across 2 railroads is complex, and probably the necessary progress was not made earlier in the project.
Okay. How are you going to assure this board that we will meet the December 2020 deadline, the fixed, inviolate, unmovable deadline of December 2020?
Well, we do have a roadmap. We have, I believe, as was noted previously, we do have a very detailed schedule, a lot of granularity to it for future releases. Those releases include added functionality, the baseline functionality, and we're working together as a consortium, I can assure you, to meet these deadlines. We're doing everything we can to mitigate risks. We have frequent consortium meetings and discussions at all levels of the organization, from the project level up to the presidents of our respective organizations. We push forward. We are making a lot of progress. I have to say that in my 30 years or so of doing these large-scale projects, I have to say within the last couple of months, especially since we got into RSD, that I have every confidence that we are going to meet this schedule. I think we have 2 overarching schedules we're trying to meet, RSD by the end of this year. And then we also have for full implementation, extended RSD into the project by December 2020. I have all the confidence in the world that we will be meeting that.
Yeah, I think, as we outlined, the schedule that we have in front of us is at the moment planned in advance of that December 2020 date. You have the commitment from the executives here. Mark's here with me. And if we talk about my boss and Lee's boss, Danny DiPerna, he's heavily involved in this as well, and we're following up at the executive level to make sure that we track the project, ensure that we assign the right resources, and when we do have challenges, that we overcome them. So it has that level of commitment from the top.
All right, thank you for that. I would say, though, sir, and Ron, I would say we had a roadmap before, too. So the presence of a new roadmap does not give me any more confidence than the existence of the old one, which I have been using for other purposes now since it was no longer valuable. My last question, which is more of a binary one for you, is can we have your agreement that if there is even a 2-month delay, which would be 10% of the remaining 22 months, that you will come back here and explain to us what is happening and find mitigations for us that do not in any way impact the budget for this, because the MTA is not an ATM.
Absolutely. We're certainly committed to doing that. We will, again, we're making every effort to meet all the schedules. We are seeing a lot of progress. We are forging ahead. We are making, I have to say, good progress, especially in the last few months. And yes, we will be committed to returning here should we have any more significant or any more delays such as those that we have experienced in the past.
Gentlemen, again, thank you very much for coming. I realize it's difficult and this is unprecedented for the MTA and certainly for my time in it, and I yield my conversations.
It is unprecedented to have a contractor come talk to a committee. It was initially suggested by Neil, who heads our working group, but with the full support of the committee, primarily because we didn't feel that you were feeling the pain that we feel, nor feel the need to drive this to a valid and appropriate conclusion. I'm very happy that you're here. I am somewhat disturbed to hear some of your commentary, because we've heard much of it before from less lofty members. Mr. Hunter, I understand that you have had a recall of equipment. Mr. Buncher, I think it is, correctly identifies that as a failure in quality. It was a novice error, and we didn't believe we had hired novices. We need a system that is adequately protected by our own quality control program and by your quality control program. And I'm at a loss to define how your quality control program could allow such a obvious problem. I would like some reassurances that those programs have been increased in scrutiny and detail so that this will not happen again, because it is a significant setback for both of the railroads, Metro North in particular at this point.
Yes, so we've instituted several new quality gates. We've recalibrated all the test equipment. We've terminated employees, and we've completely built up a whole new staff around this. So we're double checking and triple checking everything. We've had a global audit that we came in and audited the entire line to make sure that we're following all practices, and so everything's been recalibrated and retested. New employees and new quality gates are in place.
That's exactly the kind of response that I think we deserve to hear, because that's what you should have done. I will also say that you're dealing with what we intend to be a safety system that improves the safety of our riders. So it's very important that it be done correctly. I am somewhat concerned when I look at the schedule, because it does appear that in order to meet the deadline, and I certainly hope we're out of RSD before the end of this year. It does depend on additional software releases, but I think that should be doable. I don't want to see a schedule that truncates our ability to test this equipment. I think you need to speed things up. I am especially concerned because of the interoperability issues that we hear about, but even small things like the algorithms for temporary speed controls. All that has to be done after we're out of RSD. And as you well know, we have a complex, very complex system. The fact that we had we have back-to-back interlockings, only one on Metro North, but many on Long Island Railroad. That couldn't have been a newsflash to you because we've had them all the time. How can you assure us that we are not going to lose schedule any further, nor will our own ability to test and quality control this equipment be put at risk with your schedule?
Yes, we certainly understand that. I think it's important to understand and I think we all agree that safety is the primary issue. It is. We do very rigorous testing. Anytime we have a release, anytime we have an update of software, we do very, very rigorous testing. So safety is the key here. We do have very dedicated teams. The entire consortium, we're working daily within the same facility in Pittsburgh and out here. We're doing field testing. We're certainly doing, we're completely committed to meeting these deadlines. And I understand that, sure, they are very, very complicated railroads. They are. And yeah, perhaps when the project was first initiated, I honestly don't know if we had all the drawings. I honestly can't address that personally. Perhaps others can here. But I can tell you that as far as an access system goes, and access is the primary PTC on the Northeast Corridor, access does not necessarily address back-to-back interlockings because most railroads do not have that. And right,
That's well known to us.
Sure. And the way we're addressing this issue on the Metro North Railroad is by a few signaling changes, I believe some transponders moving around.
It's just a basic workaround. It doesn't solve the problem.
Well,
it does solve the problem temporarily, but you still have the issue on Long Island Railroad.
Yes, on the Long Island Railroad. Yes, we do.
So the solution for implementing that on Long Island has been identified. As Ron highlights, and you know very well, it is unique and therefore it's adapting some of the standard technology that's being applied here. So the team have had to work very carefully to ensure implementing that in the best way possible. Again, to look at the interfaces and the issues with Amtrak and other railroads and alien trains that may be coming over this system. It has implications outside. And it's not just within one area of the system. It requires a significant change across the overall integrated system and different components. So we've had to properly elaborate what that solution needs to be, and now it needs to be implemented throughout the different components of the system.
Thank you. We talk about segments. I want to assure you that each one of our segments is unique and has its own issues and problems. So putting PTC across all of our segments is no small challenge. I thank you for coming to talk to us. I agree with Neil's final comments. I do expect that if we have a further delay, you will return.
Veronica?
Good morning, and thank you for coming. The final bullet on our risk and concern slides indicated from our railroads that there was an inadequate level of staffing provided by the team. So I have a few questions related to that. The first is, has Siemens and/or Bombardier, either individually or as this team, been contracted by any other railroads around this country to provide consulting work for PTC?
I'll let Mark answer for Siemens, but Bombardier doesn't have any other PTC projects. We don't do consultancy for any other railroad on this, no.
Yes, for Siemens, we are a hardware supplier to many other railroads, some of the same products.
Would you give us an approximate number of railroads? Is it 5 to 10, 10 to 15?
I believe there's probably 7 in total that we're working on.
And with regards to the understaffing, in what areas, what tasks or responsibilities has the understaffing occurred?
Well, initially we had some understaffing with testing, with testing resources. Since that time, over the past 8-9 months or so, we've actually doubled our test teams. We have tests. We have full complement of testing in the factory for factory acceptance testing, for field testing, field integration. Whenever we do have factory testing and field testing, we have both of our consortia partners come together. We both witness the areas. We both witness the actual results of the testing. We've also had some concerns on the system integration side on the Long Island Railroad primarily. We have, unfortunately, we had our primary system integrator was no longer on the project. Since that time, we have contracted, we've actually had a few people in the meantime. I have to say the primary difficulty we've had is that all the railroads, all the 41 railroads in the country are going into, they're heading toward the same goal. Trying to find experts in positive train control is no easy feat. We've all pulled out our Rolodexes. We've called consulting firms, called everyone. And people are committed to their own projects. They're committed to their own railroads. And we've had a very, very difficult time finding the experts needed. But in the meantime, we have found over the last few weeks or so, month or so, we do have a team coming on board. I think there are 4 individuals coming on, and a 5th is coming on internally within Bombardier. And beginning of March is when we're going to have that complement of team in place moving forward to the end of the program.
I was going to ask about that. I appreciate you offering that, because in your correspondence to us, you all have indicated that more changes would be happening in the first quarter of 2019, and I expect that's the answer.
Yes,
that's the
that's
explanation,
correct,
rather.
yes.
And you've indicated also that you've made other changes in staffing prior to this more recent one for the first quarter 2019, and you've just touched upon some of them. Can you just give us a more full scope of how else you have tried to address the understaffing, with what resources and personnel? And quantity might be helpful. You've indicated 4 teams are going to be added, perhaps a 5th. Quantifying it that way would be helpful also. Thank you.
If I could just address that. So as the schedule became more compressed, okay, Richard Hunter mentioned that there was some issues with progress at the beginning. As the schedule became more compressed, we realized that we had to staff up. We had to get more people on the project than originally planned in order to hold the schedule. So we addressed that in a number of key areas. When you're testing the product in the factory, whether you're doing subsystem testing or integrated system testing, we have labs, and they're staffed by a number of people who are performing that testing. We doubled the size of those test teams in order to give ourselves the ability to accelerate the schedule. So we have the ability to double shift factory testing simultaneously for both Metro-North and Long Island Railroad software baselines. We then subsequently have to test in the field. We have simultaneous testing going on multiple line segments, beginning with the pilots, and then we're also out either testing the subsystems or supporting the railroads as they test the subsystems on the non-pilot segments. So we grew the field test team that's based in New York significantly. We probably tripled the size of that, and we've gone and worked with a number of firms that specialize in signaling experienced resources. There's a number of firms who actually put under contract people who have experience in the signaling business. So we go to them, and we've added a lot of people to those teams. So in terms of our operation in New York, also we had, I would say 3 years ago when I joined the project, we had maybe 25 people roughly who were based in New York on the project. We're at about 80 people based in New York now, and of course we have large teams supporting, and that's 80 people just, in the Bombardier office, and there's additional people from the Siemens office, of course, who are supporting here in New York. We also have large teams remotely in Pittsburgh and other places around the world. We've grown the size of those teams, again, in an effort to make sure that we can hold the schedule. Everyone, and I want to just make one comment about urgency. We are constantly reminding everyone who works on the program, whether they be based here in New York and are face-to-face with the customer, with you, and are also riding the railroads, even all the people working remotely, we're doing everything we can to instill in them the sense of urgency that's necessary here. We have a moral imperative and a contractual imperative and a business imperative to finish this. And I want to assure you that we've grown the size of these teams, and that from a leadership perspective, we're making sure that everyone understands what's at stake here.
Chuck?
Let me address this to Mr. Sander, who has considerable experience with this agency, and to the gentleman from Siemens. We can beat up on you, and the fact that you came here today shows that you are prepared to do at least something or whatever you can to move forward. But I'd like to impress upon the two of you a fact. Your reputation as a company, as a viable company in this area, hangs on what you do here. When I met with the president or the chairman of Siemens a year or so ago in Vienna, he said to me that one of the priorities that you have is to expand this business. As I tried to persuade him, he ought to go into the building of cars business in the United States as well. And Wolfgang Hessen said specifically, this is a core business for Siemens. Bombardier can use every piece of business it can get its hands on. Your reputations as viable, aggressive, competent, and willing partners in work depends on what you do here. I don't need to beat up on you. You know your problems better than I do, and I have no desire to do so. But I do want to impress upon the two of you that this board, this agency, and I believe American business as a whole is looking to whether or not you have the will and the ability to achieve, and to achieve within a deadline. Should you fail to do so, you will have caused your companies irreparable harm, and I thank you.
Norman?
Yeah, I got a sort of human capital question and then a quality control question. But the human capital question goes like this. I mean, imagine a learning curve, and you've brought in this case, you went from 25 to 80, you said? So that's 250% increase. Of the 250% increase, okay, think of 55 heads. So you brought in 55 heads. How many of them are at the top of the learning curve, meaning that you're bringing them over from other properties that are working specifically on similar PTC projects? How many of them are otherwise experts in signaling who are getting up to speed on the PTC project? And how many of them are new workers, green, people with other skills, I assume electricians or signal or computer systems of some type? Where does that, of the 55, are all 55 of them you transferred from other PTC operations, or are all 55 fairly green?
So the people that I spoke of in our New York office, I would say, without having all of their resumes here, that approximately 75% of those people came with signaling experience. And I mentioned that there are some companies that specialize in securing people who have experience in the signaling business and putting them under contract. We've gotten a lot of those people from those companies. So we have them under contract. They're working for us as contractors. And then there are others from other employment agencies and other, word of mouth, internal transfers, things of that nature. So I'd say a good 75% of them had railroad signaling experience and have worked on railroads here in New York or in other places around the world. And it's a very international team, by the way, that we have. And I think that we've seen
the positive impact of having people with a lot of experience working on the program. So there hasn't been, for most of the people, a big learning curve. I mean, it's something you always have to be concerned about when you bring a lot of people on board. You know, how much time the people you already have are going to spend training them and losing efficiency. But I think that we've been lucky that we've been able to bring so many people on board who have experience in the first place.
Thank you. The other question I have has to do with ISO 9001. I assume you're all parties to ISO 9001 or ISO 9000, whatever the number is now. Now, the mistake that was made here was relatively, we thought, trivial problem that should have been caught, or I guess more like a routine problem. I mean, when's the thing been calibrated? Seemed to us to be a self-inflicted wound. But does making a mistake like that on this sort of scale, does that trigger some sort of protocol in ISO 9001? Have you had to like rejigger how you study your quality control system itself? Is that too obscure a question? Anybody want to try to answer that?
No, it doesn't change the ISO 9000, but what happened was it didn't follow the procedures. So we did have a review. We had a review internally. We had a review by engineering to look at the procedures manufacturing was following. They improved those procedures. We had a single point of failure where one technician was not only preparing the equipment but also testing it. Now we have 3 different stages of that with different people doing it. We've had experts from Germany come in and look at the current procedure and certify that we're doing it properly now. This was a mistake in the way that it was set up, that we relied on basically on one point of failure that created this. Obviously, this hurts us quite a bit, not only in our reputation, but in the project as well. And so we are sorry for it, and we've taken the correct steps to address it.
Thank you. I wasn't really looking for a mea culpa, but, good answer.
Vinny?
Just a quick question. So obviously a lot of pressure to get the project complete, which is understandable. Currently, the system that we currently have, it's necessary to operate with failures. So after the fact, all said and done, we're implemented. Is it too early to determine if it could be likely that we would be operating with failures even after implementation? And should we be prepared about how that would affect the operation? So in other words, one day the day will come that we're at a good place and we're up and running. But odds are with this tremendous pressure that's on you, there may be failures and there will be rules set up on how we operate with those failures. But should we be concerned about how that might impact our service once we're up and running?
Very good question. Of course, we have very, very rigorous processes and procedures for testing. The purpose of that is twofold. One is to ensure safety. Safety is critical. That's the most important thing that we all do in this room. And the second is to ensure that what we provide is fully functional. Most of the time, especially when it comes to very complex software like this, going through this rigorous process is necessary. Doing the appropriate factory testing is necessary, and also doing the appropriate field testing is necessary. You don't always find everything in the factory that you do in the field, as we all know. We make every effort to ensure that there are no failures. Will you have no failures? I guess it's a matter of what point in time, because we're trying to ensure that there are no failures, obviously. But at some point in time, I would say, I can't put a time frame on it. The bugs, the software bugs, the variances, things like that, will be worked out. but I have every confidence in the world that you will get a safe and stable system at the end of the day.
And if I could just add quickly, we are prioritizing those things that have the most significant impact on operations. So we're working with the railroads to categorize the remaining variances or bugs that we have and make sure that those get addressed, the ones with the most significant impact get addressed in the earlier baselines. Leaving aside, the more difficult problems like back-to-back interlockings, we've worked together to identify those things that have the most impact and try to get those alleviated sooner.
Any other questions on behalf of the committee? On behalf of the committee, I want to thank all of you for coming. I know it wasn't pleasant in that context. We all have reputations and credibility. This agency has made a variety of commitments to our constituents, our commuters, our elected officials over the past number of years that this system and all of its technicalities would be implemented on time under the FRA rules. We've had to make, obviously, some modifications, as you have, but hopefully, going forward from February 25th, 2019, we will all move together in a coordinated fashion to get this done in the right way, in the right efficient way, in the safest way possible. Your reputation as stands by that. Our reputation and credibility, whatever is left at MTA, stands by that in that context. But this committee takes this very seriously. That's why we get reports every month. We don't do that just to fill up the time, although some people will say that to us. We do that because this is the most important issue facing our commuter railroads at the moment. And I think you've heard that from the members of the committee, and you're hearing it from the chair today. So we thank you for coming. We look forward to a continuing dialogue going forward. If there are further modifications that have to be made, that they're made in a coordinated fashion. And we look forward to the date in which you will be sitting here and telling us it's done, and our people will be telling us it's done, and that our riders, almost 200 million a year, can know that they're on the safest possible commuter rail systems in the world. That's our goal. That's why PTC is there, and that's what we want to achieve, and we look forward to achieving it with you, because if it's not done with you, it's not done in that context, and we look forward to making that happen. So thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it very much, and we'll stay in touch. Thank you.
Yes, we want to thank you for giving us this opportunity. We also want to thank both railroads under the leadership of President Eng, President Rinaldi, and everyone and their staff. Been very supportive. Their dedication, their commitment to getting this done. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will continue the report. We're on information items from the Long Island Railroad. Phil?
Chairman, we have a few March timetable projects that we are supporting. We have State of Good repair on Montauk Branch, tie replacement and track work, supporting Amtrak State of Good repair in Penn, the third track mainline expansion project as well, and Lynbrook Station improvements. In addition to supporting East Side Access that Jano talked about earlier, West Side Yard overbuild, some Sandy Long Beach restoration work, and Jamaica capacity improvements. We've also the St. Patrick's Day Parade service that we've added for Saturday, March 16th. That's all I have, Chairman.
I think we both agree that Saturday, right? Or is it Monday? The new South Fork service starts in Suffolk
correct,
County?
Yes. March 4th,
Monday.
It's the launch of the South Fork commuter service, and working in partnership with local electeds and local communities who will handle the last mile. We're proud to be able to provide this opportunity from Spionk to Montauk and alleviate traffic congestion along the local roadways.
We look forward to that being a tremendous success. It's great importance to the constituents, my constituents in Suffolk County. Any questions on any of the Long Island Railroad reports? Metro North? Kathy?
Okay, we have several information items. The first is the adopted budget financial plan for 2019, which is provided in accordance with the MTA procedures. The second are our annual operating results for 2018. The information is in the book, and we're available to answer any questions. And John, extremely briefly, is going to provide an overview of our performance goal changes in 2019 as compared to what we accomplished in 2018.
Thank you, Kathy. Based on inquiry from various members of the committee, just want to highlight three specific changes for 2019 goals. Two of them are east of Hudson and one is west of Hudson. For east of Hudson, constants compliance, we did have a goal of 99.0% in 2018. That was quite challenging because we've actually programmed a higher number of cars for service due to increased ridership, but we haven't added any cars to our actual fleet size. So constants compliance overall will be 98.5%. In 2019, which is the actual compliance we had in 2018. The second one, which kind of ties into the PTC conversation we just had, is mean distance between failure. Metro North's MDBF in 2018 was adversely impacted due to PTC equipment failures. As a reminder to the committee, we began operating with civil speed enforcement back in January, and we were fully implemented sometime late March, early April. That caused us to miss our overall MDBF goal of 200,000. We actually operated at 144,017 miles. If we exclude the PTC failures, we would have been at 195,000, which is basically at goal. Based on that, every month we allocated in 2018 32 mechanical failures per month. That's being increased to 40 mechanical failures per month. That's an addition of 8 train failures across our various fleets to accommodate PTC. And in the scheme of things, we operate 20,000 trains on a monthly basis on average, and that equates to a service reliability from a rolling stock perspective of 99.8%. The final change has to do with our west of Hudson service. We had a goal of 95.5 in 2018. Due to various challenges at New Jersey Transit, they were unable to achieve that. And also to recognize their implementation of PTC, we've determined to make their goal equivalent to what we have here as east of Hudson at 93.0, which actually is still 2.3% higher than what they were able to accomplish in 2018, which was a relatively poor 90.7. And again, a lot of that was driven through their PTC applications on the other side. So I don't know if you have any questions on those 3 metrics.
Any questions from the committee? Thank you, sir. Chuck, go ahead. Go ahead.
The metrics here are...
Chuck, just put your microphone on.
I'm sorry. The metrics that you are addressing are the newly formed metrics that we got. Is there any consequence for failure to adhere to them at all?
Well, east of Hudson, the consequence of failure is answering to you on why we didn't meet our goals. and for west of
That's
Hudson...
worse than anything else.
and for west of Hudson, it's similar to our relationship we have with the state of Connecticut. There really are no financial penalties per se. As we spoke over the last several months, we have established a working group between Metro North and New Jersey Transit to review the current service agreement and determine what we might be able to change to go down closer to that road.
Let me make 2 points, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Go right ahead, sir.
First, with respect to the west of Hudson, and particularly the upper ends of it, Passaic and Pascack Valley, I should say. That was a hearing that was an embarrassment. The kind of service that the people up there are getting is non-service. It really is terribly embarrassing. and either New Jersey Transit ought to get out of the business and we get into it, or vice versa. But it really is not fair to the people up there, and it's something that bothers me. Second thing is the metrics. Since there's no consequence, it's the same thing as the goals you now have in your book. Isn't that right? What's the difference?
To be honest with you, I don't understand the question. The difference is, from an east of Hudson perspective, the Metro North, and just like the Long Island team, work every day to deliver every single train on time.
I'm not faulting that. I'm just trying to understand the difference between these recently announced metrics and the metrics you have, but you call goals. Is there any difference?
So Chuck, let me take this. I mean, the MDBF that John is speaking of, the OTP that John is speaking of, all of this, I mean, this is stuff that really, for purposes of the committee and the whole board, is a transparency measure, so
Right.
that you have the information that you need to hold us accountable for the delivery of safe and reliable
I have
service.
that already in the goals, don't I?
Yeah, well, that's what this is. This is our annual. This is sort of separate from that other Metro conversation that we've been having.
Right.
This is really our standard goals that we set every year, so that every month you can hold
And
us
I'm
accountable.
not faulting you
Yeah.
on your attempts to deliver on those
Yeah.
goals. I just want to be sure
Yeah.
that we're not talking about two different
No,
things.
We're talking exactly about the goals we report on every month, every year, and on occasion, as the new year comes into play, we have modified the goals on a periodic basis, the same way we modified our OTP goal in 2014 to bring it down to 93%. Back in 2014, we've changed our philosophy dramatically, and the goals we present are the minimum our customers can achieve, can expect to receive from Metro North. So again, our goal is 93%. We strive to operate every single train 100% on time. As Kathy stated, so far we're running at 96% overall, and as Neil rightfully has stated, the AM peak is the one that's most challenged to be delivered. It's the highest train density within the shortest period of time, where at least on Metro North, similar to Long Island, we funnel 3 tracks off the Hudson, 3 tracks off the Harlem, and 3 tracks off the New Haven into 3 tracks into GCT. For example, in the month of January, AM peak, with the exception of the Hudson line, the New Haven line operated significantly above 93%. The Harlem line operated above 93%. The Hudson line had a few challenges down in the Tarrytown area due to some third rail failures and some signal failures. But the one thing that impacted the AM peak in January by itself across all 3 lines happened to be on the last day of the month, on January 31st, when at 6:30 in the morning, there was an unauthorized person on or about the tracks running around the vicinity of 125th Street and the Harlem River Lift Bridge that delayed the majority of our AM riders during that morning, and we lost 3 or 4 percentage points on that one single morning for the entire month of January. For year to date, January through now, our AM peak is at 93.3. The Hudson, because of those January issues, is at 92%. The New Haven and the Harlem are at 94 and 95%. So we hear you. We understand the criticality of the AM peak, and the team is working diligently to deliver the service our customers expect and deserve.
Kathy, anything else?
There's more.
Go ahead.
We have the annual fleet maintenance report, which is in the book, if you have any questions on that. We have the April 14th schedule change, which I will just say is in the book at this point in time, because I know we're running a little bit long. And Susan, the diversity and EEO report, should we just cover that at diversity at this point?
I think we have
Okay.
to. Thank you.
And that's it.
Can I add one
Go right
thing?
ahead, Susan.
I have asked that the workforce diversity come to the operating agencies, because it is the operating agencies that have to assure that we're going to meet or not meet. And having it done only in diversity really doesn't achieve that goal. But we're running a little long.
Yeah. Okay. Procurements. Oh, I'm sorry, Veronica. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to make a very brief comment on the diversity report. And I have some additional questions and comments that I will submit to the committee and to the chair of the committee. But there's some observations that I made with respect to the Metro North and LIRR railroads that I want to highlight very, very briefly. I'm a little concerned with the underutilization analysis that I saw for both of the railroads, particularly when it comes to Latinos. 4 of the 6 categories, job categories for Long Island Railroad, and 5 of the 8 job categories for Metro North are underrepresented amongst Latinos, or rather Latinos are underrepresented amongst those job categories. So it's something that I think we should continue to delve into. I think when these reports are presented quarterly, for the next quarterly report, it would be great to see a historical context and analysis of this data. So this data, as we all know, is presented looking over 4 quarters of a given year. It'd be helpful to look over many years to see the progress that we've made as railroads or as an agency broadly, or the progress we've not made. And also, my last comment is regarding the Title VI complaints. Again, I noticed that for both railroads, 100% of the complaints are ruled in favor of the agency. And I don't understand the breakdown of that. I think it would be helpful to understand the different types of complaints that are made, not in great specificity, but in terms of category, so that we can have a better understanding of how these are adjudicated, decided, ruled, et cetera. Thank you for the moment to address
I think what we'd like to do for the next report, which is in June, Susan? June, is to put diversity as part of the president's reports up front. So, because I don't want them to get lost in the time shuffle that we sometimes get into. So if both of you could put that as part of your report at the beginning of the meeting, so that we can spend the appropriate amount of time discussing it and going from there and analyzing it.
And
that would be helpful.
We're not so interested in the numbers as we are in the efforts that you're making to improve the numbers, or the issues that you deal with that prevent us from reaching the numbers.
Okay? Good. Okay. Procurements. I noticed there are no Long Island Railroad procurements. Metro North for the last time, I guess.
One more time.
I just hope your replacement understands your relationship with Chuck Merdler.
Big fun.
I mean, I'm not quite sure who wants that seat after this, but I leave that to the confines of the president of the railroad to find somebody who will take that on. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. I will be brief. There are 2 competitive procurements in this month's package totaling $12.4 million. The first competitive procurement approval is requested to award a 22-month competitively solicited design-build contract to Powell Electrical Systems in the amount of $9.8 million to design, furnish DC traction power switchgear systems for 9 Metro North, Hudson, and New Haven line substations. The second competitive procurement is a request for approval to award a 3-year competitively solicited negotiated public works contract in a not-to-exceed amount of $2.6 million to the firm of LIRR Maintenance Away to provide self-propelled rail grinding services. Those are the 2 procurements for this month, and may I please have a vote for this? Thank you.
Any questions on either of these 2 items? We're going to let them off easy on the last meeting, huh? I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. And thank you for your patience. I think that's a good word over the years, and expertise. We tremendously appreciate it. That's it for Metro North. Capital Construction?
Good morning. Capital Construction's procurement package this month consists of 7 items totaling $50.2 million and begins on page 234 of your committee book. Due to the time, I will not highlight any of the items. There are no items in the non-competitive section. There are 6 items in the competitive section totaling $48.8 million and 1 ratification totaling $1.3 million. These items are submitted for your consideration and vote, and we are available to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions? Chuck?
I'd like to take you over to page 234 and then 235. You indicate that there is an SAI concerning Providence. It's not listed in the list of SAIs. I don't need you to do it here, but I want to know what that SAI is.
We're not presenting Providence this month as we're investigating the situation. If we do decide to go forward with Providence, we will get the appropriate approval from the chair, and we will provide that information as normal in the director's desk.
Good enough.
Okay? Any other questions? I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Okay. The appropriate agency reports are listed starting on page 245. Are there any questions or comments on any of the items? Okay. If not, make a motion to adjourn. Thank you all for your patience today, but I thought it was very important and a very appropriate meeting. Thank you.